Times were tough, so I sold my soul. And I don't think I'll ever regain control. Devil looked me in the eye, and I looked the other way. What else could I do? I just stood at the doorway, knew I'd rather be drunk with you. I'd rather be drunk.
Hey Internet, this is Dracofunk, and I'm playing some Kerbal Space Program. This is my reusable space program, mostly, kinda, sorta. I mean, mostly is the correct term. I've broken a few things, had a ship blow up, but, you know, it happens. And speaking of things being damaged and broken, this ship that we are launching is a little probe core that has engines and docking ports, and more importantly, parachutes. Its sole purpose is to rendezvous with ships that don't have a way of landing on their own, connecting to them and helping them land. And today it is going to rendezvous and dock with the S.U.V. and get it down to the ground so it can be repaired and sent back up. As you know, the S.U.V. collided with the Ares 1, practically destroying the Ares 1. The Ares 1 remains have been already landed on a mission that went, well, I got the crew safely to the ground. No Kerbals died. The only Kerbals have died was in that explosion on the surface of the moon, and I don't know what happened to that. But anyway, the ship has gone through the rendezvous phases. I've used the rendezvous planner, and I am now coming up on the S.U.V. There it is. I'm going to do the easy docking method where I can control both ships and just have them point at each other. And then all I need to do is send them flying towards each other, and I will take off the UI so you can enjoy the nice cinematics. I really do like the I wish I could talk. I really do like the cinematics of this game. I'm going to have to turn on the UI because I realize they're not coming towards each other anymore. There we go. Just in time. I should have titled this the Crossfade episode because I do a lot of crossfading this episode, more so than I think any other episode I've ever done. See, there was another one. Here we are tumbling through the atmosphere. It's fine. Lagerfeld's enjoying this. Nilsson isn't so sure. And here we are. We've slowed down to a reasonable velocity. I can bring the parachutes out, and they will deploy and bring us to a slow landing in what looks like the ocean. And here we go. We've touched down. I don't think anything else is broken. And we're just going to roll over there, and then the Kerbal Navy can come out and collect. Oh, something else did break. Well, that's okay, because the ship's going in for repairs anyway. And there was nobody in that passenger compartment, I promise. Really, if you don't believe me, go watch a couple prior episodes ago where I took out the passengers and sent them down to Kerbin on the SSTO. But anyway, here is the Ares 3. Currently, we are amidst a fuel crisis. So, all available ships are on call to head to the Mun Station, or Mun Station, however you want to call it, to collect as much fuel as possible and deliver it back to Enterprise stations so we can keep the space program afloat. Now, we are much better off than we were 3 or 4 episodes ago. But we are still kind of in crisis mode. So I've done the easy docking method of pointing both ships at each other and just having them come in. I'm keeping a little bit more of a close watch this time. Also, this footage is sped up 4 times just so you don't have to sit through the incredibly long docking maneuvers that I do. And now what I'm doing is poaching the fuel from this spent rocket booster and filling up the tanks as much as possible. I want to fill up all the Ares 3 tanks completely and even go ahead and put a little bit of fuel in that spare orange tank. And then, since there's so much fuel there, I'm going to go ahead and dock it back with Enterprise Station. Here I am trying to do all my docking visually, realizing that I'm coming in way, way off course. So I'm just going to back up and dock to the bottom of that small mining ship. I don't know what I'm going to do with this ship. It's kind of just been hanging out at Enterprise Station. It was originally on the Mun, and I realized it just did not have the docking capacity for this mission. It would have taken several maneuvers of landing, flying up to the station and landing and flying up to the station just to fill all the fuel tanks up there to the point where it was worth it. So I designed a bigger landing and mining ship to land on the Mun. But now that the fuel from the Ares 3 has been deposited back on Enterprise Station, filling those tanks with the necessary rocket fuel to keep the space program going. And there we go as our flyby. We are going to fly this out to the Mun, to the station there, which is Columbia Station. And it's going to dock there and be refueled once the mining ship flies back up. Despite my love of crossfades, I'm going to forego crossfading here because who needs consistency? Alright, I got an encounter. I'm going the right way around Kerbin, or not Kerbin, the Mun. Again, consistency. I'm going to stop at periapsis and burn retrograde so I can circularize my orbit. I'm going to step it down, but I'm going to crossfade so you guys don't have to see that anytime now. And here we are. We've already been through the rendezvous maneuvers and are coming in to Columbia Station. I'm going to dock right behind the crew module. And I'm trying to do this visual docking thing, and there we go. Almost. Down to the left, back over, point to it, just get, there we go. And as we can see, most of the fuel tanks are empty, except for that one. That one's full. So, in order to fill them, we're going to have to land the big mining ship. There we go. And just flying away from the station, I'm going to step down the orbits. Or at least that was my intention until I decided that, you know, even though we're not at periapsis, this kind of looks like a good place to land. So let's just go ahead and land there. I should have enough delta V. Probably should have retracted the solar panels. Now, I don't need to bring my velocity all the way down to 0, but I want to bring it to a point where I have a good idea of where I'm landing, and I don't want to fly into one of those craters, or worse yet, the side of one of those craters. And now I bring in the solar panels and put out the landing gear. So I'm just watching my velocity. I'm going to slow myself down so I don't have to really worry too much. The most efficient way to land would be to do a suicide burn where you don't start burning until absolutely necessary, to the point where you time it correctly to where your velocity hits zero about the time you touch the ground. And that's really hard to do. And if you mess it up, you crash. That's why they call it a suicide burn. I didn't do that. I did land a little hard and I'm sliding down, but that's okay. I can deal with sliding. And I'm just going to crossfade because it's now 26 days later. Yes, it takes it about 26 days to fill all the fuel tanks on this big mining ship. And now I'm just taking off, using the nav ball to make sure I'm pointing in the correct direction. And it's pretty easy to get this into orbit. It is a very heavy ship once it's all filled up with fuel. I'm also bringing 1,500 units of ore back up to the station. And eventually, once I'm full of ore, I'm going to use that to make monopropellant up on the station, because the Mun Station is running sorely low on monopropellant. And I also need to be refueling that, because that's also a type of fuel that we need. And neglecting that will put me in a different fuel crisis, so I need to not do that. So, through the magic of... Am I going to go through the magic? No, I think I'm going to show most of it. So, normally, I would cut out the docking, because you've seen me go through the docking for Rendezvous Planner. Not docking. Rendezvous Planner. A million times. Well, not a million times. Not a literal million times. Just a lot of times. And I'm really not that far from the station as it is. And here we go. Using time warp to my advantage a little bit, rather recklessly, but that's okay. And I'm close enough now. I don't need the rendezvous planner. I'll just point towards the station and fly there once I can find my target. There it is. Just using the RCS, reaction control system, the thrusters. I'm thrusting towards Columbia Station. Again, using time warp because I'm impatient. A reminder, this footage is already sped up 4 times, so it's like extra time warp. And as I approach the station, I'm looking for a place to dock. And that open docking port right there on what would be the bottom of the station, technically, even though the station's kind of oriented, it should be flat, but it is actually kind of on its side. But, you know, according in space, really, it doesn't matter which way you're oriented, because up is all relative. There's technically no up in space. I mean, unless you're talking about the relative plane of where most of the orbits are around the star. But again, that's only relative to that star. You go to a different star system, up would be a completely different direction. And then same for, the galactic plane. But anyway, I have dumped all that fuel, and I have crossfaded now, skipping all of the refueling to fill up all the fuel tanks. And I am going to go ahead and land this back on the surface of the Mun and make another fuel run, even though I believe all the fuel tanks are full. Now, my intention was to not even show this, but I ended up including the video because of what happens next. And my computer glitched there, so hopefully that doesn't mess up the audio recording or the video recording. I'm just going to make sure my audio is still recording. And it seems to be. So, post-editing me will make a note of this. It happened at 15:08 in the video. So hopefully I'm still synced up to the video. I don't know if I am. So I'm just looking for a landing spot, and my intention was to land this and get it back into orbit and then dock it for the next episode. But I think what happened was I stopped this playing session and went to the next one and forgot what I was doing. But that's okay. So I'd accidentally left the ship slightly unbalanced, so I'm just trying to help balance it a little better by pumping some fuel out of one tank into some of the others. Now this time I actually did step down my landing, and I'm looking for a good landing spot, and this place initially seemed like it'd be a good spot. But as I'm watching the footage now, I'm noticing that it looks really, really hilly. But I'm thinking, I'll land between these two craters and it'll be fine. It'll be flat between the two craters, right? And I'm just free falling. I'm not even worried about cutting on my engines until I got them on a little bit just to slow me, probably more than I need to. Probably could have waited till I'm about 3,000 meters above the surface. Or 3,500. I always think I'm not gonna cut on the engines till 3,000 meters, and then I get nervous and cut them on early. Still trying to help rebalance this a little bit. Okay, now I'm slowing it down and haven't quite noticed how not flat the ground is. Make a nice soft landing on the completely not flat ground, and I'm rolling down. Don't break anything. Okay, try and point bottom. Try and get it pointed up so I can. There we go, and blast off. Okay, nothing broke, but that's not a good place to land. So I need to fly around and find a better place to land. No, that's not good. Okay, over there it looks a lot flatter. So let's just fly over in that direction. Okay. I wonder how much fuel I have left. One thing about these refueling missions are it's better to land with only enough fuel to make the landing. And luckily this time I actually left more fuel than normally I do, because I have taken off from the Mun Station with less than 700 Delta V, and if I would have done that this time, I would have been in a lot of trouble. luckily I accidentally left way more extra fuel. I'm sliding a little bit, but as I said earlier, I can deal with sliding. So I'm just going to crossfade and skip over all this mining. As you can see, it's 29 days later. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the nav ball and go ahead and blast off from the Mun. Make sure I'm pointing in the correct direction. And now I'm going to crossfade to the station and completely forget about the mining ship. Because what I've done was I stopped playing for the day and I came back the next day thinking all I needed to do was fly these ships back to Kerbin. And that's what I'm going to do. So this is the space bus. I'm sending it to Kerbin. Now I'm sending the tanker, which I've named the Canterbury. If you have seen The Expanse, then you know The Expanse was a ship in the first season of that show. It was an ice freighter, but this is a fuel tanker. Not quite the same, but still. Here the space bus is circularizing in orbit of Kerbin. But it's got that big fuel tank on the back. Unfortunately, I don't think the space bus was a good candidate for this mission. I believe it's going to actually end up in a net loss of fuel. And here the Ares 3 is setting up its rendezvous for its trip back to Kerbin. I should have got all 3 ships on a course back to Kerbin before bringing the other 2. I'm not sure why I didn't do that. Probably because I'm scatterbrained and just wasn't paying attention. Here's the Canterbury circularizing its orbit. This freighter has actually proven several times over, while it does use a lot of fuel, it can usually bring back a full orange tank. Then it doesn't worry about refueling and can fly back to the Mun. Then I refuel it there completely, and I can send it back to Kerbin again. So each time it's bringing almost a full orange tank back. Here's the Ares 3. Turns out as a towing vehicle, this is more efficient than the space bus. The space bus really should just be used for ferrying passengers like a bus and not as a tractor. The Ares craft is a better tractor than the space bus. But either way, here is the space bus coming in for its docking to unload its fuel, refuel itself, especially the monopropellant. The biggest design flaw for the space bus is the monopropellant. 200 units just really isn't enough. Here's the Canterbury. It's going to dock the opposite end. Oof. Watch the whole station flex as it hits. When NASA would dock to the International Space Station, it would come in basically 0.025 meters per second. So Kerbal Space Program docking is so much faster and so much more reckless. And here I am bringing the Ares 3. I'm going to go ahead and dock it right behind the Canterbury. And the Ares 3 is... I'm just going to go ahead and transfer the fuel and refuel that because I'm going to send that fuel tank, I believe in the next episode, I'm going to send it to Challenger Station in orbit around Minmus. As well as I believe that other orange tank with the space bus is also going to go to Minmus. And those will be the 2 orange tanks on Challenger Station. And maybe I can get the Mun Station up and running, and I'm going to transfer all this fuel to Enterprise Station and get this space program back on track. Either way, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this, enjoyed my scatterbrained, my video processor being a little bit buggy. I don't know why I've lost sound. Every other time it seems I'm not recording sound, and I'm not sure why that is. Either way, don't forget to like, subscribe. If you'd like, donate to our Patreon. Thanks, guys. See you next time.